Hi, you guys. I know I said I wanted to come back and talk about this is not the topic, however. I wanted to come and talk about the whole conversation about women creating songs of empowerment that seem to bother certain people. But this is not the video that I'm going to do that in. I'll try to do that tomorrow since it's getting kind of late. But I wanted to come on and because I've been trying to upload this video about the 50 greatest female rappers of all times. This list came out 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I wasn't able to upload the video. So I've kind of been holding on to it. So I decided to go on and go live about it since it involves Nicki Minaj. There's also the story out here from Salt and Pepper. I guess they were interviewed, I believe, with Star magazine, and they were asked about the state of hip hop today, which most people who are not from this generation, they're going to ask about. They're going to get asked about this. Feel a difference, right? And so, yeah, I just wanted to come on and touch on this a little bit because someone put this. Let's see if I can find the right one with the list on there. But someone put this list out, and in one of these videos, it's going to come up. 50 greatest females they feel of all times. And I believe the name of the company is 50/50 Entertainment. Um, put the list together that they obviously were raised around a certain time based on how they did not include certain people that they probably should have included. And so you kind of know that, okay, and they really wanted to focus in on some type of comparison between Nicki Minaj and Little Kim. And I think that I spoke on that before. I don't think it's a good matchup because of the time gap and um, went into the industry and when Nicki Minaj went into the industry, kind of ushered in by men, right? Little Kim with Biggie and Junior Mafia, and then Nicki Minaj with, I want to say Cash Money, but Young Money. I guess you can say Cash Money as well. And so they were both ushered in. So their styles are similar in their history, I guess is similar in that way, but it's still two different times. For me, I don't see comparison because Little Kim was in the industry when she was up against a lot of heavy people, a lot of heavy hitters to me. Like when you think of a TLC with Left Eye, who was an MC, and she definitely incorporated that in that TLC sound. You cannot compare um, someone who was in the industry with no competition, no one really um, getting the same attention or getting promoted or pushed with the same push. Some of these people, young people today, can't even get to a radio station even if they wanted to, right? Or some of these blogs, like some of these blogs are even bougie about who they're going to talk to, right? It's not the same when you would see people wanting to see people get in, right? Wanting to, it just was a different time. People probably don't even understand what I'm talking about. But, radio, I can remember when radio was just like, it sounded like just a extremely fun atmosphere. And everybody was able to go up there and, you know, talk about their music that they have coming, who they're signed with, if they just got signed, what people can look for from them, and new artists were just treated, it was just a different feel for new artists and people wanting to see people win, right? And that's just my opinion. People can come and say whatever they want to say. I just feel like radio and these blogs and these so-called influencer, as they're calling them, they don't have the same feel as the people from before. And so you're up, anybody that wanted to compete against Nicki Minaj, they're up against that. Like, they're up against people saying, no, I don't really want to let you come up here. Right. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say with that. And like I said, she had, Eve was out here, you had Lauryn Hill, you had so many other girls that were there before Little Kim, and then the girls that came in after her. So she's dealing with both sides of that. She's dealing with the people like the Queen Latifah, who was still recording when she felt like it, even though she had moved into acting. She was competing with the Brat, and who was making history, right? As a female in hip hop, Salt and Pepper was still out here, legends at that point, even when Little Kim was coming in. Um, so she was up against some I would say heavy hitters considering. And you can't compare that when somebody has to really go in and really do their work and put a whole, like I've said this, I don't know how many times. People had to put full projects out. You could have for themselves, cup a different feel. It was a different feel, right? And then you have to deal with the audience. You have to deal with the radio people and the magazines, and she was up against a lot. And I feel like artists today, they kind of create the atmosphere for themselves, to be really honest. And like I said, and then the certain people, and I won't name them, but y'all probably know who I'm talking about. um, they just kind of control who you're going to see and who you're not going to see. And if they really don't want to have you come in there, they're not going to invite you in there. Like, it's just not the same atmosphere. It's like the money is kind of stuck on who they want the money to get stuck on. And, you know, I don't want to get deep off into the economics of that, but it's definitely about money, and who's going to make the money and people making the decision about that, which goes beyond what I started out talking about this 50 list. But I noticed that the person put Little Kim at number two and Nicki Minaj at number one, and then they put all these other people under them who should have been, much higher than a Little Kim, even a Little Kim and a Nicki Minaj. To me, that's my opinion. Like I said, Little Kim wasn't in the industry by herself. She was, so many people are borrowing from what she was doing. But at that time, when she was in the industry, she was probably would not have been considered that top girl. I think the conversation was definitely around a Lauryn Hill and an Eve, far more so than it would have been around a Little Kim. And even a Foxy, even though they had their thing going as well, and I would imagine that's why, because they really were kind of in competition for that attention. Um, and then the whole thing with the video vixen thing, that whole time came in where people were pushing video vixens. Okay, they didn't want to hear the female MC, and I feel like they were molding how they wanted to see women in hip hop. And I'm not, gonna say that was just men doing that, because there are women who are music executives as well. So I mean, that was about people just following, um, I guess, what others were saying. This is what we need to do. Women, those executives or female executives, and even the ones who were controlling the magazines and stuff, the hip hop magazines, would have spoke up more, but they didn't. They did not say anything, and so you saw the rapper get replaced with models, and then I feel like you saw the decline in them when they started to talk. Like, when they started to start telling all these guys business, then it was kind of a turnoff, right? Because then you're showing another side of these people, which some of that stuff could have got some of those guys in a lot of hot water. Um, and so, and I'm not even going to go there, but I'm just saying, you had that moment in there. I think Remy Ma was kind of already out with Terror Squad or whatever, and who else was out? Crime Mob might have been already on, out and on the scene, and a couple other girls, Shauna. You had some girls that was like right there, and then, like I said, you started to see that video vixen thing become what people wanted to see, and so that's kind of the time that Nicki Minaj was there as well, and so people have to be honest about that. You want to put somebody at the top of the list when they really, it just wasn't a fair time, right? Now, as far as you want to say her era, yeah, since she was the only big name um, that you can even come up with anyway for I guess the era right now. Yeah, she is probably number one, but of all time, no, you can't say that she's that of all times. There are people who made it possible for there to be a Nicki Minaj, so that has to be taken into consideration as well. And the fact that those people were the top of their era, like a MC Light, um, you know, like a Lauryn Hill. And I know people love to try to create this argument around if her album was R&B more so than it was hip hop, and if only she only had one album, but she was a part of Fuji's, and they were extremely successful, right? And anybody can research anything that I say, like I said. So she still was already on legendary status even before she dropped um, that solo album, The Miseducation. And so you have to consider all these things. You can't just sit there and put people at the top of the list because you just want to create an argument about Little Kim and Nicki Minaj. And so I just thought that was funny. And then the other part of what I wanted to talk about, which still brings in Nicki Minaj conversation, is Salt and Pepper were asked about music today. And I think sometimes people try to create this argument that the people who were in hip hop before are talking about or down on the new generation. But the truth just is, okay, it is a little over sexualized to the point where when you even attempt to watch any of these videos or try to show any of these girls any support, like people have their booty crack in the screen, okay? And we're going to be honest about that. We're going to be honest about that. We're not going to sit here and act as if that makes sense all day, every day for every girl that's in hip hop to have to represent hip hop that way. Like, I think that Salt and Pepper have a point with that. It's a little bit overboard in that direction. And the fact that no one is, kind of promoting the women who are not trying to do all of that. And that was always the beauty of hip hop for me. I don't think I would have been a fan of hip hop if I only had one kind of style of hip hop to look at, because I'm open to everything, right? I want to hear, I want to hear even the rock and hip hop, fused together. I want to hear, the conscious stuff. I want to hear the party stuff. I don't just want to see nobody's booty crack, um, when I'm turning on some music. And, the same topic, like we have to be bigger than that as women if we're going to demand and command respect. And I think that what they were saying was the truth, and I don't think they were necessarily, because when somebody else in her video, she was saying that they were pointing to Nicki Minaj. When I was reading the article, I didn't get that, and I probably should have added some of it in here. But no, I didn't get that when I read when I actually went and read the story. It was they were just pretty much saying that, that period, which is that video vixen period, there was no one there. There was no really, no one who was allowed to really get that time, right, in the spotlight, or get that recognition, right? You could tell that they were pushing the female rapper out in exchange for these girls that were going to dance around in these videos. Um, and to be honest, those guys expected those women to pretty much be quiet, right? Just come in and do what I guess what they wanted them to do. But they began to take that whole situation began to take on a life of its own. And once you start offering these girls more than what they were signing up for, right? People are gonna do a little bit more to get whatever it is that they're getting offered. And so once you start seeing the girls writing the books like Corinne Steffen, like I said, then it started becoming a turn off, right? You started to see them a little more getting pushed. The Melissa Ford, I think she was hosting a show at one time. You started seeing them doing all these interviews and talking about these guys package size and how many of them they slept with, or how they refused to sleep with them, or who was trying to hit on them and they're married. It started to take on a different life, and they started to become a little bit of a liability, right? I think this is just my opinion. And so you started to see that shift a little bit, right? Because of that, because it definitely started to make the guys it become a little more obvious, right? I think when if they could have gotten silence out of these women the way they wanted it, it probably would not have been as a big of a deal. And that's when you started to see the Nicki Minaj come in. Um, and so she was coming in at a time where there really wasn't anybody there. I think that's what Salt and Pepper was saying. And they feel like because she came in a little sexualized, that's kind of pushed the rest of the girls who are coming after her to feel like that's what they have to do. Whereas before it wasn't like that. If you were on that level, if you was on that, then that's just was your lane. But everybody wasn't doing that. You had more girls who were doing the party stuff. You had the girls that was doing the street stuff. um, Everybody wasn't talking about the same subject. And all women are not the same. All women don't have the same goals in life. Everybody's not trying to clear some man's pocket. Everybody's not trying to have a butt crack in the screen. Going and then excuse me, and then this whole topic about plastic surgery, I think that came into play in the article as well. you know and the dangers of that. Like, there was a story that I might still do it, it just depends on my timing. um, the two young ladies that went to the Dominican Republic, I think that's where they went, and one of the friends didn't come back. It's there's danger, and I've said this before about the whole plastic surgery conversation. People don't talk about that enough. The fact that it's dangerous. At the same time, we're all anybody doing that, you're taking a risk at doing that, and everyone's not going to survive these procedures, and especially when you're going somewhere doing it for the low low. And so these are things that you have to take into consideration. You have to really do your research, get recommendations, and these are serious conversations that these women really should have. And since everybody's running to do this so they can fit into something. Um, and so I think that's more what Salt and Pepper were trying to say. I don't think they were necessarily singling her out, but she was singled out because nobody else was there. It's not personal. The story just is, and anyone that is doing research on that, they're going to see that for themselves. They're going to see that for themselves, unless they have, but when you have people that are being biased in the conversation, then obviously they don't want to acknowledge that for whatever reason. But it definitely happened that way. It definitely happened that way. And I feel like I've said that before myself. And so, yeah, I feel like people can go back and look over hip hop, and you're going to see that breakdown. Like I said, I feel like that Remy Ma, Shauna era, that Disturbing the Peace, Terror Squad era, Crime Mob era. And then you see Nicki coming in, and you see the Video Vixen stuff is going, and it becomes bigger than the MC for whatever reason, and no one still to this day can explain that, right? So anyway, the other thing about this list of 50 people, it was, a lot of people left off. Salt and Pepper were not even on this list, and they should have been on the list. if you're going to say of all times, because they definitely kicked in a lot of doors, especially that commercialized door where you see the girls outside of hip hop, where you see them in the commercials and being able to do the TV shows and all this stuff. They're definitely one of the a part of that, right? Like Queen Latifah, who was in Juice, and when you started to see women in hip hop making moves like that, you cannot overlook that to just put somebody there on the top simply because you just like them. There has to be a list of things that are factored in. And then they have a bunch of people on this list that don't even have records out. And then people who had records out who were actually on the charts and on the radio who are not even on the list, like Miss Jade, and some other people. And so yeah, and then I just the order of the list is ridiculous to me as well. But to each his own. I think that I've said this even about the guys when they make these lists. I feel like people should make the list for each era because it's different. It's a completely different time for a Nicki Minaj than it was for a Eve or a Lauryn Hill or a Little Kim, Foxy Brown. Even going back further to a Miss Melody, a Roxanne Shante. For it's a very different time for each era. So you have to be mindful of that and respectful. I feel when you're doing things like that. Otherwise, people are just gonna think it's a joke. Um, but you guys can let me know what you think about this story in the comments, and I would challenge people to read the article from Salt and Pepper before you start to jump to conclusions because they never really pointed any fingers at Nicki Minaj. They just said that, you know, this the young girl saw her in a certain light, and so they wanted to mimic that. And so now you have all these people doing one thing instead of having a variety of styles in hip hop, like giving everyone the opportunity who is talented. But then when you really think about it, when you take talent out of things, it just I guess it just really don't matter anymore, right? So maybe that's why when you're coming out of that video vixen era, everything is just sexualized because you're still in a way competing with those images. um you can look at it that way as well, I guess. I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit from Queen Latifah from an interview in 2019. In 2019, she was asked about the same thing. And this is what I'm saying. It's not like the people want to say these things about this new generation or anything like that, but people are constantly making the comparison and asking these women to make the comparison. Um, and I feel like Salt and Pepper were coming from an honest place. I don't think that was a dig. And I feel like Queen Latifah is coming from an honest place about the music industry as well. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. And let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. And if you want to let me know, and let us know who the top five female MCs, excuse me, women in hip hop that you would put at the top. Let me know in the comments, your 1 through 5. Um, and yeah, if you guys want to let me know, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Like this, and in the music, in the rap world.
I had that feeling in general in life. Not as much in the rap world, surprisingly. Actually, some of the people you might have considered the hardest rappers at that time had a lot of respect for me. They were some of the first people to come up to me and support me, once they figured out it was me. Like Ice-T or Big Daddy Kane. There was so many people who actually respected me, a lot. And they liked the way I carried myself. They liked the things I had to say. But the things that I was talking about was just what I was seeing in life. It was more so real life. Walking down the street and being catcalled or, being doubted because you're a woman and not expected to being pushed to achieve in the same sort of ways or the same doors being open for you or the same salary. I mean, we still dealing with the fact that there's pay inequity. I mean, I started rapping 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying? What is the problem? So, it's a shame that these things even still have to be discussed, but I had to discuss them back then because look at now. Look what happens when you don't talk about it. It never changes.
Music actually generally is now associated so much with misogyny and sexism.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Why did that happen?
I can't say overall why this has happened. There's a lot of things that I think have contributed to it, but such as the fact that radio stations are not owned by mom and pop places in their own communities, that they just got bought by big corporations, and the DJs didn't get to play the music that they wanted to play as much anymore. They got lists that they had to play. I mean, we barely have R&B stations here in New York. We used to have a lot of them when I was growing up. But if nobody really cares about your community, they don't really care what's being said on the radio. I mean, there's things that are being said on the radio that I'm shocked at. And I never felt like it was right to say that stuff on the radio.
Like what?
Like curse words. I don't think you should be able to say certain words on the radio. This is for mass market, and kids listen to it. And I think kids should earn the right to hear curses like the rest of us. They shouldn't just get them for free at a young age, damn it. This is called rites of passage. You gotta earn this stuff.
That's true,
We just giving every kid, everything. They're babies. They don't know how to handle that stuff. So they just incorporate it into their lives. And, I just think that there's always been an avenue for people who are different and creative to be able to get their things through. And so there was always an encouragement to try and do something different. And not do something cookie cutter. So when only the cookie cutter stuff seems to get through, people start thinking they only can make that to be successful. And you gotta understand, this is economics. I didn't just get into hip hop to make music. I got into it to change the economic future of my family. So when you got money involved in this, and you got people who wanna get education and better houses for their family, get out the hood to actually own a house instead of renting, or put food on the table, you're doing what you gotta do. And so it kind of hinders you from maybe feeling the courage to express yourself because you feel like somehow that might be taken away from you. But I think because of the internet now and because of different avenues and platforms to put your music out, it's gotten a lot better, and people have gotten a lot more brave because they can establish themselves like that from the beginning, and they can still get millions of followers.
So it sort of starts with resistance, and then it takes a dip, and now you're saying there's actually a rise in that freedom of expression and creativity. That's good.
I do.
That's cool.
But it has to be across the board. I think people are influenced, and it goes back and forth. Life imitates art, imitates life, imitates art,
But there was also a lot of silence around that sexism and misogyny. I mean, and like the